we focus on developing systems for social good. I think there's so much to learn from what Hercules and his colleagues are doing. So we were tasked to try and embed ethics into our technical information systems curriculum. We dovetail with a lot of the work that our computer science department does. So this would spool over to their courses in machine learning. And when we started looking at the challenge of embedding ethics into a technical curriculum, I just saw this example online last year. There's a huge interest in this. Almost 16,000 people were enrolled on the data science ethics course. So it's something that there was a lot of momentum on, not just from last year, but from 2015, 2016 onwards, this started picking up. So we as two technically minded people, we had to delve into ethics. And that's where the idea for this paper came from. Our question was to figure out, one, what core content related to ethics should be taught in a technical graduate level curriculum. And we wanted to make it really practical for the students. And secondly, how should such a course be presented? Are there any special techniques or tools? And so we searched through literature for those two things. So ethics content that relates to system design, and how these courses might have, maybe we could find people that have had similar experiences in the past. So we picked up from literature that there's a great need for such curricula to be developed, but not a lot has been done. There's a lot of attempts happening now, 2019, 2020, but this was quite a new thing, and I grabbed the words actionable AI from a conference program, and Prof. Emma, I enjoyed your presentation a lot. I think our challenge was about how to make it AI practical, so that the students could somehow make it actionable in their system designs. And yeah, so this was our challenge. We had to give an overview from literature on basic ethics concepts, and try and design a curriculum that would actually allow technical students that had no prior tuition or knowledge of ethics to somehow embed this into certain components of the system architectures and their system designs, or the algorithms that they would be designing. So we decided for this paper to ask our 100 postgrad fourth year level students in our department to give them a survey, to ask them questions which in the background relate to certain ethical principles, to get a feeling for how much they know about ethics, and then at the same time go through literature and try and find some frameworks and classifications, and there are many that we can put this feedback into. And we had some issues during lockdown getting full responses back from our postgrad cohort, but eventually 34 students answered the full survey on ethics and how they would prefer such a course to be presented when it's combined with data analytics as a subject field, or system architecture as a subject field, or programming as a subject field. So we created a survey, and the survey was specifically tailored to try and pick up gaps in the postgrad students' knowledge as far as ethics is concerned. Remember, these are science students or technical stream commerce students that have no prior in-depth education on ethics. So to point out how bad or how good they actually understand certain ethical principles. And then we also asked them questions about practical teaching mechanisms like reflection and so on in the classroom. From the questions, so from literature, we and I would like some comments on this from the philosophy department guys. So we reduced all of the different frameworks that we could find. As Prof. Emma mentioned, I think there's about 160 of these that she could find, but we reduced it to, if we want to incorporate ethics into a technical course on system design or programming, we have to touch on the concepts of moral intuition, explicit morality, utilitarianism, Kantian deontology, and virtue ethics. I think most of these have been mentioned somewhere or somehow this morning. And then something that also came out very clearly was that the ability to reflect on the different philosophical stances in a certain situation is very important. It's maybe the most important skill that we have to teach our students. So we, as non-ethics trained lecturers, put together a module containing the basics of each one of these. And we are going to present it this year for the first time. The second portion, yeah, so maybe just a note on reflection, just to take all of the conference participants to how foreign ethics are for our students as a subject field. We have to explain what reflection is, and that you might, by following certain thought pathways, you might end up with different design solutions. And that this poses a challenge to the designer. So we have to break it down quite far. So we created a component of our fourth year level system design course where we have specific case studies that highlight each of the following ethical principles. They've been mentioned, most of them this morning: accountability, autonomy, bias, and so on. And we ask the students to reflect on the case study. And this seems to open up their thoughts to the possibility that there's different, almost equally good outcomes, which places you in a decision point. So this was very interesting for us. We had to delve through quite a lot of ethics content to get to a reasonably extensive list and some nice case studies on that we could present to technical students so that they understand. Just from the survey on this portion on what to teach in the classroom, the students had very, very little understanding of any kind of ethical theory. The ethical stance that they related with most, it's not necessarily a good thing, was what is termed moral intuition in literature, or a non-reflective gut feel of what's good and bad. So our technically oriented students might be very good system designers, but they feel that if the system is well designed according to them, if their gut feel says it's good, then it's good. Otherwise, it's not. So there's a massive gap for us to start teaching ethics at the graduate level and to enhance this way of thinking. It can be taught. We asked several questions about how they rank themselves on certain skills, and I think it's something that can be taught, certain thought processes that can be conveyed to students. And yeah, just maybe a comment from, I think this came through in the personalization algorithm presentation as well. The students seem to understand that there's the potential for harm, and that it would be worthwhile for them to learn more. So we we figured out the core content to a certain extent. There's a typo, but we also figured out that we have to reflect on the core content and on specific case studies quite a bit in the classroom to get it to strike home with the students. And then we asked them questions about how to present these courses, and uh, the students, because of their undergraduate training, uh, uh, they responded very positively to questions that related to future thinking, thinking about making the future better, thinking about how to, with systems, do social good, and how to then relate it back to system design, to input processes, data management processes, output processes. They responded very positively and with some certainty that they would be able to do this kind of thing. When we asked them questions related to design thinking for empathic reasoning, and uh, all of our students are made aware of service learning, and they go through service learning at the undergraduate level already, are very practical, hands-on opportunities to apply their knowledge. And the students indicated that if they could see certain ethical dilemmas play out in practice, they would be able to then bring back that what they have learned and build it into their system designs. So this, to summarize, students feel very comfortable uh, with being taught ethics. They just haven't been exposed to it, and they feel comfortable with, I think, some very good ways. This is very much Carolien's field of expertise, but how to teach technology-related topics in the classroom. So our final slide that we have here today is what we're going to teach in 2021, and I would love to give feedback in the next iteration of this conference. Is we decided to restructure our system design, our technical system design class completely, to first think about future technologies and how to design them, but start sensitizing students there about the ethical considerations within each classification of technology, whether it's image recognition or data capture or whatever it might be. And then input-output processing thinking seemed to help a lot. Also, especially when we focus on responsibility, whose focus is it, whose responsibility is it at the input and output level. Then we built in a reflection portion of the course, which weren't previously there, just to reflect on ethics and then to ask the students to do a practical design, to do an impact assessment, uh, to to try and design something for the good, and to try and consider all of the ethics that they have learned. And we're then going to do a post-course survey and see whether there's a improvement in their understanding of ethics and how it relates to tech. Thanks. That's what we have.